My name is Giannis Antetokounmpo. I want to be NBA player.
Select Giannis Antetokounmpo from Athens, Greece. He last played.
I to go to Spain and or go to Spain or go to the draft and become an NBA player.
In my head that I'm going to be the best player in the league, and I'm going to win the MVP.
What kind of player will you be in 5 years from now?
Hey, I'll be much stronger.
One start with 9 on the shot clock. Giannis!
I like Magic Johnson and Kevin Durant.
So another Warrior turnover. Here's Giannis.
I started playing basketball 2008. 5.5 years.
High pick and roll. Giannis on the loose. Oh, he did. Watch this.
Giannis is dominating the NBA right now. But what you might not be aware of is he's doing it against all odds. The Greek Freak story is truly one of a kind. He's faced a lot of adversity, and the mere fact that he's playing in the NBA right now, given where he's been, makes for an unbelievable underdog story. Also, somehow it's likely that because of his harsh upbringing, we are able to witness an athlete who will conceivably be one of the best to ever play, that is yet also one of the most grounded and humble players in the league. Quite simply, he remembers where he came from. It was reported that after buying a PS4, he felt so guilty he can enjoy a privilege that so many that live where he came from can only dream of. He sold the PS4 to the Bucks assistant coach shortly after. Anyways guys, before we start, it's been a lot of fun making this video because I get to tell the incredible and unlikely story of one of the basketball spectacles of our generation. So sit back and enjoy. Giannis's parents are from Nigeria, where they migrated to Athens, Greece, just a few years before having him. Naturally, with his dad being a former professional soccer player and his mom a high jumper, well, it really should be no surprise that Giannis would end up doing things like this.
Antetokounmpo with the hammer.
Anyways, by the early 2000s, there would be 5 Antetokounmpo brothers. Even though 4 were born in Greece, none of which would be given citizenship until turning 18 years old, effectively making them stateless, belonging to neither Nigeria or Greece. The parents, being immigrants, could not easily find work, which, although at first this would cause some major turmoil in their overall quality of life, in an ironic twist, would later lead to them never having to work again. I'll explain this in just a few minutes, but at this point, the family was faced with uncertainty. None of them were Greek citizens, they would receive no benefits or assistance from the government, and so it was the Antetokounmpo brothers would set out to the streets to make a living. Being from Sepolia, a neighborhood of Athens, it's actually surprising they were able to avoid a life of crime. His future coach, Spiros Velaniatis, would report that he had lost many of his immigrant athletes to drugs and suicide due to the brutal living conditions. On a quick side note, we actually got the chance to visit Sepolia in Athens. We were there for the Acropolis tournament this past year. So for those of you that are new here, we are always visiting different places to do either training camps, watch up and coming athletes, and explore the culture of different basketball communities. So if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe. Anyways, even now in 2019, it wasn't the most privileged neighborhood, to put it mildly. But fortunately, Giannis and his brothers chose to take a more noble path, although certainly still less than glamorous. They would sell watches, handbags, sunglasses, and whatever else they can get their hands on in the streets of Athens. The brothers were just kids at this point, and in order to survive, this would simply be a necessity. But here's where things get really interesting. Do you recognize this guy? Probably not, but he plays a major role in this story. His name is Spiros Velaniatis. As Vice put it, he's a simple guy. He lived in a blue-collar neighborhood, which was hit hard by Greece's economic troubles, and at the time, he could barely afford to pay his bills. He was an obsessed basketball coach that was constantly on the lookout for the next up-and-comer. And so it happens. It's 2008, and Spiro sets out to find an athlete he had remembered to have some potential from a few years back. He sets out to the neighborhood of Sepolia in search of Thanasis, Giannis' older brother. Although he wasn't able to find Thanasis, he stumbled upon 3 kids playing tag on a basketball court. 3 brothers, Kostas, Alex, and Giannis. And it was at this moment Spiros realized he could be potentially in the presence of one of the biggest basketball talents in the world. However, the problem was Giannis, just like his dad, was a determined soccer player. He was unfamiliar with basketball and insisted he would not play unless Spiro could find his parents jobs. And so it was. Negotiations between the two went on for quite some time until they came to an agreement. The family would receive 500 euros each month, and in return, Giannis would have to start training with their team. It was the first time they ever sponsored a 13-year-old kid that also had to learn how to play basketball.
What?
Giannis Antetokounmpo's basketball career was born, and at least in part, in order to get his parents jobs. However, things didn't go exactly smoothly after this. Giannis quit playing basketball over 10 times to pursue a soccer career, and time again, Spiros would be back in Sepolia convincing him to come back and try again. 3 years of this continues until Giannis has a 50-point game. And well, the era of the Greek Freak had officially begun.
No, it's not.
If Kawhi is the second best player in the league,
Yes.
and Giannis is the best player in the East, that must mean that Giannis is the best player in the NBA.
Yeah.
Greek Freak, I think, is a force, and he's nothing. I've never seen anything like him. And his ceiling is probably he could end up being the best player to play if he really wanted to. So that's pretty scary to think about.
Giannis, this time, no block shot. Left-handed flush. The Bucks are at shooting twos because they're not used to it. Giannis. Tucking away from Aldridge. Giannis Antetokounmpo. And here comes showtime. Antetokounmpo with the hammer. By Sterling Brown. Antetokounmpo.
Well, actually, it didn't quite happen this fast. For the years to come, after Giannis decided to commit to basketball, he was plagued with a deep-seated fear of the extreme poverty he was used to, growing up in one of the poorest neighborhoods in one of the poorest countries in Europe. And because of this, the grind didn't stop. He became obsessed with the game, becoming a great student to his mentors, soaking in all the information he could, and he would practice non-stop. As it turns out, Giannis also spent a lot of nights at the gym he practiced at. He would later admit he was vulnerable, scared, and he didn't want to go home because he felt alone. This basketball gym would become his home both metaphorically and literally for years. Over time, as Giannis began to establish himself as a legitimate basketball player, moving up the ranks playing professionally in Greece, it wasn't long before he would get his chance to compete with the best of the best in the NBA. He would then get picked up 15th overall by the Milwaukee Bucks. He had his NBA debut on October 13th, 2013 at 18 years old, and also became one of the youngest NBA players ever. He goes on to average 6.8 points and 4 rebounds this season. Although, if you ask Giannis, he would tell you his debut was in his 3rd season when he led the Bucks to a loss against Washington with 27 points. It was at this point he realized he could play like that every night. He would go on to say consistency was the mark of the great athlete, and that was something he was capable of. This day would serve as a milestone for Giannis and would set the tone for years to come. At this moment, Giannis is leading the Bucks with a 30-5 record. He's averaging 30.5 points per game, 12.8 rebounds, 5.7 assists, and over a block a game in only 30 minutes. You might also recall that just a few weeks ago, Giannis led the Bucks with 34 points against the Lakers to establish themselves as the best team in the NBA. The Greek Freak is having a historic season and will have a good shot at taking down his first NBA title this year. From being homeless and impoverished in the slums of Athens to signing a $253 million contract and being one of the most recognized and esteemed athletes in the world, well, it's needless to say, Giannis was an unlikely underdog. He has been since he was born, but it hasn't stopped him so far, and, well, I'll just let Giannis tell you.
Just the beginning.
Alright guys, if you're still here, it's for people like you that we make these videos, so if you're not already, go ahead and subscribe. From your 20,000 subscriber hopefuls, Cortical Hoops, see you on the next one.